Hondas and Honda clones, Predators. Everybody seems to be using those on the, me included, on the cycle carts. But with the emphasis on building cheap and building with what you have on hand, I thought it'd be interesting to start looking into using some of these old Briggs engines. They're all over the place. You find them sitting in people's garages unused. They came off of a rototiller or an old lawnmower, and you know, usually people give them away just to get them out of the garage. These two here, that's exactly where I got these two. Neighbor was going to pitch them out in the garbage, and I said, well, wait a minute. Let me take them over there. I was thinking about building a cart for my grandson, who's going to be 4 next year, and thought these would be ideal for that. And in the 5-horse version, this is a 3, this is a 3.5, and there's a 5-horse version. It's real common, used on a lot of power equipment back before the overhead valve engines came around. And they're surprisingly they put out quite a bit of power. They were used in go-kart racing for a long time, up until the advent of the overhead valve engines, and they get quite a bit of power out of them. Surprisingly, they can be modified. There used to be a lot of speed equipment available for them, cylinder heads and pistons and connecting rods and all that stuff. I think some of it's still available. A few little tricks on working on them, which also apply to the overhead valve engines and stuff. I see a lot of people prying flywheels off with screwdrivers or pry bars and stuff, and you really don't need that. Many years ago, my dad was an old school mechanic, and he used to take off brake drums off of some of the Chrysler products, which had a tapered brake drum on the rear wheels, and you would take them off with a little impact tool like this, which is what I use on the Predators or any of the small engines. Anyway, I went through this 3.5 horse, completely through it. Bought a couple carburetor rebuild kits, and they were cheap off of eBay, and they've got everything in there for every model small engine like this. They'll fit the 3-horse, the 3.5 horse. I think it might even fit some of the 5-horse engines. That rebuilds the carburetors on them. They're very simple. The fuel caps on them, if they're 25 or 30 years old, the rubber's going to be all dried out. When you start it up, it's going to splash out all over the place. So you need to replace that. Other than that, generally these things are pretty bulletproof. The air filters are still available for them. And other than that, there's not much you need to really do with them. Clean them up, and usually they're not used so much that the engines are worn out, so they're usually in pretty good shape. This one was on a water pump, and I don't think it was. This thing probably didn't have more than a few hours on it. This one here, I don't know what the history of it was. I just started working on this one. The older style. The older style starters, the recoil starters, were like this. And this outer aluminum piece, this ratchet, this is actually the nut, the flywheel nut. And a lot of guys will put these on, and they'll take a they'll take a, they'll take a hammer and they'll tighten it up by using a hammer on it, or a hammer and a screwdriver. You'll see them do that. This needs to be torqued down, just like it would be on this one. This one here actually has a nut. There's actually a flywheel nut in this that you can torque down. It's not the same style recoil as this. So that's not adequate, because if you do that, you're gonna have the flywheel coming loose on you. It's got to be torqued down, and the torque specs on these is 55 foot-pounds. Briggs sold a tool for removing these like this, and they're hard to find. I don't think they make them anymore. You find them on eBay once in a while. They're 25, 30 bucks, and then you throw in another 10 bucks for shipping. And I think I've seen it at Jack Small Engines for $9.95, probably $15 shipping on it. But again, they're not available, no longer available, even though they list them in their catalog. So I made a tool by taking a piece of tubing, welding it onto a plate, and some dogs onto that. And I had some, you could take a 7/8 nut. I had some 7/8 hex stock that I machined to go into here, and then I welded this whole thing up. And that goes on there. And then you can take an impact and that will remove the starter, recoil starter. You get the flywheel off. That's all it's holding the flywheel on. Washer on there. You get the flywheel off. I've made this threads onto the standard 5/8 18 thread. Stops a little bit before it gets to the flywheel. And then a good sharp crack with a soft hammer, and your flywheel's off. This tool also allows you to torque your flywheel down afterwards. I see a lot, like I said, a lot of guys will use a hammer and a screwdriver or whatever to tighten them up, and that's not really putting enough torque on them, and the flywheels will come loose on them. So something like that's necessary. If you can find one of the Briggs tools like this, that's better, but like I said, they're getting hard to find. Something like that you can make up pretty easily. Okay, that's about all I wanted to say about these. I'm gonna get these two running, and I'm gonna put them on a small cart for my grandson, and should be plenty of power for a 4 or 5-year-old. And did I say that they're free?